This is Good Morning Transfers. What a 24 hours of transfer news we have had. Chelsea's Conor Gallagher looks set to leave the club. West Ham making moves too. They're hoping to sign at least 3 new players. We're going to discuss that and have the latest from Manchester United. They've been hit by several injuries, including their £50 million signing, Lenny Euro. And then there's the update from Everton. Can they keep hold of Jarrad Branthwaite? Well, before all of that, we're going to quickly recap some of the other transfer stories that you may have missed. West Ham have agreed a deal to sign Crescencio Somerville from Leeds. Arsenal remain interested in Real Sociedad midfielder Mikel Merino. No formal approach has been made yet. Fulham are in advanced talks with Villarreal to sign defender Jorge Cuenca. Crystal Palace are also closing in on a signing. It's Ismaila Sarr from Marseille. And then Ipswich Town. They have agreed a deal with West Brom to sign left-back Connor Townsend. Don't forget, if you're out and about, you can keep up to date with all of the latest transfer news. Our dedicated Transfer Centre blog is always there for you. You just got to scan the code, that QR code right now on the screen. Plenty going on then. Very good morning to Dan, Khan and Sam as well. Right, we're going to start with the future of Conor Gallagher. Atletico Madrid have agreed terms in the region of around £34 million with Chelsea to sign him. Now, we know that Tottenham are also interested. Chelsea are expecting them to also make a bid. Any move now is down to the player. It's after he rejected a new 3-year deal yesterday. Sam, we'll start with you. Does a move to Spain suit Gallagher, do you think?
I think it does. I think when you look at the way Atletico Madrid play and the way Diego Simeone plays his football, I think it's a match made in heaven. You know, Conor Gallagher is a midfielder that's almost like an old school box-to-box midfielder. He can score goals, he can get involved in play as well. And I think when you're thinking of the type of midfielder Simeone wants from this window, I think Conor Gallagher is probably at the top of his list. That's why you're probably seeing them make this move and trying to make it so quick, because they know that he's going to be in high demand. You know, Spurs are linked with him. There's a few other clubs as well. He's still very young. He's got a lot of experience in the Premier League. He scores goals, scores important goals as well. It just depends on whether, like we know, if he's interested in the move, because, you know, that's going to be a real different shift from playing in the Premier League to playing in Spain. But I think in terms of his playing style, in terms of the team that Atletico Madrid is, I think it makes sense.
Chelsea have clearly tried more than once to make him stay. Can you see, Sam, why he might want to leave?
I mean, yeah, when you're looking at the midfield that Chelsea have, we spoke in the last few windows about all of the midfielders. You know, Caicedo was signed for a lot of money, Enzo was signed for a lot of money, Lavia as well, Guchukwu, Santos, the list goes on. There's so many midfielders, and I think now, when you look at the way Enzo Maresca wants to play his football, you're probably thinking, even though Gallagher is a great midfielder and he was one of Pochettino's best players and Pochettino had high praises for him, I think what we've seen in this pre-season is that Chelsea want to play a lot more possession-based. The midfielders won't be doing as much running as they were last season. And I think in terms of the hierarchy of where he stands, I don't know if he's in the top 3 or 4, even though he seems like the player that would push, and he obviously is still very young, so he's going to want to improve and get better, and he did last season. But at the same time, if he wants to be playing week in, week out and wants his position to be the same as last season, I don't know if he will have that this season.
And Sam spoke there about, you know, Conor Gallagher's style of play, which is totally correct, you know, in terms of the type of player he is. We saw that for England as well, right, under Gareth Southgate. I think the interesting thing is also Enzo Maresca's style of play, because, as you mentioned, he is going to be very much a possession-based team if it's to replicate what we saw at Leicester last season. You mentioned all the midfield options Enzo Maresca has at Chelsea. Let's not forget Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall now being signed from Leicester. But at the same time, you know, it is a bit of a dilemma, because you would expect, you know, Dewsbury-Hall is Maresca's play. You know, that was the intent signing to back your new man. So you would expect Dewsbury-Hall to be starting or having a significant part, especially at the start of the season for Chelsea, which would mean for Conor Gallagher, his chances of breaking into that team are going to be really limited, I think.
Yeah, and there's always a player that comes in with a manager. You always see 1 or 2 players that comes if they move to a new club. And Dewsbury-Hall, he played yesterday, got an assist for a goal. And I think he's that type of midfielder. In terms of on the ball, he is great. And I think in terms of his work rate, he kind of matches Conor Gallagher. So I think that's going to be a problem for Maresca, and I don't know if it's a problem that he would want if there's that many midfielders that want to start.
Aston Villa also made a bid to sign him in the summer. We already know that Tottenham are interested as well. Do you think, Dan, we could see a situation where a Premier League club comes in for him?
Yeah, potentially. I think the interesting part of the Aston Villa side of the story is Chelsea agreed, a fee with Aston Villa that was larger than the apparent fee with Atletico Madrid, which is really interesting because I think on paper you would say, would Chelsea want to sell to a Premier League rival? Well, we have seen in previous years under this new regime at Chelsea that they have. They sold Mason Mount just last summer to Manchester United, of course, and then this summer they've sold Ian Maatsen for a large amount of money to Aston Villa already this summer. So I think that argument is probably out the window. However, I think the question is very much for Conor Gallagher himself now. What does he want to do? Because, as you mentioned, Bella, if he's rejected a contract offer from Chelsea already, what is he thinking? The 1 year left of his contract, would he rather stay at Chelsea and fight for his place for another year, potentially be a free agent next summer, and then have the power to decide where he wants to go? I mean, let's have no doubt. I'm sure now, if not before, as we know with Aston Villa, Premier League clubs all around the league will be interested in Conor Gallagher. I mean, he's an asset in almost every way, for the changing room, for the way he plays. I mean, remember, he was Chelsea captain last year, so he automatically brings those leadership qualities as well. So I'm sure a lot of Premier League clubs will be on high alert to try and sign him.
Where do you think he'll end up, though, Dan? Do you think Spain, and if so, could that affect his chances with England? Yeah,
it's interesting, isn't it? I think I'm going to take this maybe more in terms of a personal level for Conor Gallagher, because as I mentioned, he'll also be thinking about what's best for him, yes, in terms of football, but what does he want to do? I mean, he's born and bred Chelsea, right, in terms of a London boy. Does he want to relocate to another country? I mean, I think we forget about this part of footballers' lives. They do have to move their whole life. It's not just the football. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. I mean, absolutely. But what does he want to do? And like I said, I think, I'm sure he'll feel some sort of frustration as well. You mentioned about, Chelsea and, offering him a new contract. He has also been linked in the last how many windows leaving the club. I mean, that can't be easy for him. So I'm sure he's probably in a bit of confusion maybe about what's the best solution for him. Yeah. In terms of whether he stays in Spain or not, I think he'll probably be looking at first-team football now. He's 24 years old. I don't think he'll want to be a squad player or kind of be wondering, am I going to start everywhere? I think for him now, if he wants to continue in the new regime for England as well, he needs to be guaranteed first-team football.
We spoke about this, haven't we? He's a West London boy, Chelsea through and through, and also another academy graduate as well. Be a shame, wouldn't it, if he left?
Yeah, it would be a shame, but it's something that we've seen in the last few years for Chelsea, even before that, with Tomori, Tammy Abraham as well. But these are players that, they've come through the academy, they've proven that they can play at the top level. And with Conor Gallagher, you're seeing the clubs that are linked with him. I'm sure he's happy that, Atletico Madrid, Villa, Spurs, all teams that are going to be playing in Europe are linked with him. And even if he was to go to Madrid, he's got Cesar Azpilicueta there, who he played with for a few years. And like we've seen, Kieran Trippier made that move to Atletico Madrid, came back to England, got another big move to Newcastle. So it's not the end, I think we're seeing now a lot of players that play for England are seeing opportunities abroad and seeing how they can thrive. And I think he can definitely be one of those players.
OK. Well, let's turn to Manchester United. It's not been a good 24 hours for them. They've been hit by new injuries, especially £50 million signing Lenny Yoro. So he's out for up to 3 months. And you've got Rasmus Højlund, who'll be out for 6 weeks. Marcus Rashford, he was subbed off hurt in a friendly as well last night. And Anthony also came off with an injury. Dan, the bad luck with these injuries continuing, the season's not even started yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if you're a Manchester United fan waking up this morning, you're thinking, my goodness, deja vu. Because last season, let's not forget how many injuries they had. They had over 20 players who suffered injuries last season. And now it feels like, Rasmus Højlund coming into this season with a lot of potential. He's now injured for 6 weeks. Lenny Yoro, I saw him play for Lille against Aston Villa in the Conference League last season, looked very good. And he has looked all right in pre-season in the limited time he's had. He was a big hope for this season. He's out now for 3 months. And now, if you're a Manchester United fan or even following Manchester United, you're thinking, OK, well, the back four is going to be pretty similar now. You're going to have to either look at Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof. Lisandro Martinez is, of course, played at the Copa America, whether he'll be fit and kind of ready to go because he hasn't had a pre-season, of course, having a break. Will he be ready for that first game of the season? We're unsure. So it's not great, I don't think, for Manchester United, to be frank.
Right.
You know, Joshua Zirkzee, of course, you know, signed as a striker as well to either partner or help Rasmus Højlund. You know, he's only just returned to Carrington to start his pre-season training as well. So at the moment, it feels like United have strengthened their squad, but that depth just might not be there at the start of the season.
And just focusing on Euro for a moment, Sam, £50 million you've paid for this new signing and now out for up to 3 months. Do you think this could force them to go into the market for another centre-back, maybe?
I think they would have gone into the market anyway for another centre-back, mainly because of his age, but also the fact that when you look back at last season and we're talking about the centre-back pairings that they had, I don't think that they had a centre-back pairing play more than 7 or 8 games together. So even if you're looking at Martinez and Maguire, they had stints last season where they were injured. So you will need backup. You know, there's links with Lindelof being moved away. There's links with Evans obviously being in the side, but they can't depend on him playing week in, week out. And obviously we've seen the links with De Ligt, who seems keen on the move and wanting to come to the Premier League. So I think it's not forced their hand, but it is something that they're going to try and push to now, especially with that injury happening.
I think on that point, though, you know, we have to remember, I think Manchester United have been very clear this window that any incomings will be dependent on the outgoings. And so we know Fulham, for example, they're looking to wrap up Emil Smith-Rowe, and then they might pursue more of their interest in Scott McTominay. Now, I think if you were United, you were thinking potentially before Euro's injury, if Scott McTominay leaves the club, we might look to reinforce that midfield. Now, their strategy might have to change because of Euro's injury. Now, if they do sell McTominay this summer, he was very good for them last season, let's not forget, they may have to use that money to then reinforce the centre-back partnership again, because if Lisandro Martinez, like I said, isn't fit for that first weekend of the season, you're going in with either Johnny Evans, who again was very impressive last season, played a lot more than I think anyone expected, next to a Harry Maguire, and the way Erik ten Hag wants to play, you know, pushing up very high, they're probably not ideal for that style of play.
Are there any other areas, do you think, Ten Hag needs to look at?
I think, like Dan said, it depends on the outgoings, because when you look at their squad on paper, they've got players in every position in terms of Luke Shaw, Malacia left back, but it depends on if Malacia's even training, where he's at, what state Luke Shaw's going to be in. Even when you look further up in the pitch, wide men, they have Sancho, Diallo, they have Anthony, they have Rashford, but it depends on if these players are going to be a part of Ten Hag's plans for the future, how the injuries affect these players as well and affect his plans. So I think maybe a player in each area, also their midfield. Again, you mentioned Scott McTominay. If Scott McTominay does make a move or Casemiro gets a move as well, they're going to have to get reinforcements in. So I think we're probably going to see outgoings before we see any incomings with Manchester United.
And you mentioned as well, Dan, outgoings as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka looks to be going to West Ham. That could see them bring in Bayern Munich's Mazraoui. Do you think that's a good move?
Yeah, and I think it's a move they're going to need, especially at the start of the season. I mean, we spoke about this earlier in the week, but Mazraoui, I think the big kind of attraction to him is the fact he can play left-back as well as right-back. We saw him play in the Champions League in the semi-finals in that position last season. And again, you look at Manchester United's situation, because Luke Shaw only just got back to playing football at the end of the Euros, he'll have a little rest again. Tyrell Malacia, he's training at Carrington. We don't know how fit he is. So I think having someone at left-back will be a big plus for Manchester United this summer.
OK. Good start, boys. We have got plenty more coming up. We're going to be live to Everton's training ground to see what does the future hold for Jarrad Branthwaite. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Transfers. We're going to get to Everton now. Sean Dyche has signed 5 players so far in this window. Could there be more, though? Well, let's find out. We'll speak to our reporter, Vinny O'Connor, who's at the club's training ground for us. Great to see you, Vinny. Now, one new player in this week, Jake O'Brien. Do you think Sean Dyche is going to be pleased with the business that he's done so far?
I think every manager always wants more, Bella, but when I spoke to Sean Dyche down at Coventry earlier this week, he was full of praise for Director of Football Kevin Thelwell and the job that he's done this summer, because Everton have had to be savvy in the transfer market, really, with the financial constraints that they've had to deal with. So bringing in someone like Jack Harrison on loan made sense, given what he did for them last season, of course, as well. But in terms of the players that they're looking to sign on permanent deals, as well as the need to kind of future-proof the football club, bringing in players who've got potential to either be here for a long time and create an impact that way, or indeed create an impact in the short term and then bump up their value and then subsequently sold on. So in essence, Everton have tried to do that in the transfer window. I mentioned Jack Harrison obviously coming in on loan, but in terms of the other deals that they've been able to do, well, Tim Irabinum, obviously only 21 years of age, with glimpses at Coventry the other night of what he can offer and whether he can make an impact in the short term as well. He likes a tackle, but the impressive thing as well was being able to drive forward, certainly in that second half against Coventry with a ball at his feet. So certainly signs of what potentially he could offer this season. Jesper Lindstrom, only 24 years of age, in on loan, of course, from Napoli, but with that option of a permanent deal. It makes financial sense to bring him in for a season, have a look at him, and then make a decision as to whether you want him for the long term as well. Iliman Ndiaye, 24 years of age, has that Premier League experience with Sheffield United. Flashes against Coventry in that first half as to the skills he can offer. Maybe a potential link-up with Dominic Calvert-Lewin as well. Ndiaye playing in that number 10 role against Coventry. And as you mentioned, Bella, the latest arrival, Jake O'Brien, 6'6" centre half, 23 years of age. He can play with a ball at his feet, got a decent pass on him, good in the air, clearly, and scored 5 goals last season as well. So potentially will enhance Everton's threat from set pieces. So in essence, I think Sean Dyche is happy with the business that they've done. He would have liked maybe a little bit more Premier League experience, because obviously the players have been through in general don't have as much Premier League experience as perhaps Everton have brought in the past. But at the same time as well, there's that balancing act with future-proofing the finances of the football club.
Morning, Vinny. You've mentioned the business they've already done this window. I just wonder, what other areas do you think they need strengthening?
Yeah, that's the difficulty, Dan, as well, because it's someone else we spoke with Sean Dyche about the other night and whether he expected any more business. And again, the financial constraints are going to play a part there. At the minute, it looks like everything could be done in this window unless players are moved on and they create a bit of cash that way. But when you look at it in an ideal world, where would Everton like to strengthen? Well, they're pretty well stocked at centre half at the moment. But ideally, I think you look at someone like Idrissa Gana Gueye, and Everton would like, I suppose, a like-for-like replacement for him. Obviously, someone like Abdoulaye Doucouré could play that holding midfield role if needed. James Garner could potentially fill in there. Tim Irabinum potentially as well. But at the same time, no one really with that out-and-out same skill set as Idrissa Gana Gueye. I think as well, looking further down the line, there's issues still at fullback, because obviously Seamus Coleman, Ashley Young, while they can still do a job in the Premier League, are obviously getting towards the end of their careers. Everton waiting now for Vitaly Mykolenko and Nathan Patterson to regain full fitness. It'd be nice if Nathan Patterson could put his injury problems behind him of the last couple of years or so as well, and really show what he can do. So again, that's an area that Everton would look at, and ideally, of course, they'd love another threat up top, someone who's going to get them between 15 and 20 goals a season. But that's all talking about an ideal world. At the minute, Everton's finances are far from ideal, so it looks like they could be done in this transfer window, unless, as I say, players are moved on.
Vinny, one player that all Everton fans and Everton will be very keen on keeping a hold of is Jarrad Branthwaite. Come the end of this month, will he still be an Everton player?
We keep getting asked that. In fact, I was asked that when I was walking into the stadium at Coventry as well the other night, because I think people were putting 2 and 2 together with the signing of Jake O'Brien and saying that this could be a contingency plan to allow Jarrad Branthwaite to move. It was something that I put to Sean Dyche at the end of the game as well. He obviously refuted that suggestion as well. I mean, I think Everton would be naive not to expect there to be further interest in Jarrad Branthwaite during this transfer window. We've already seen Manchester United come in with a couple of low ball offers as well at 35 million and then 45 million. million. But Everton are well reasoned in their valuation of Jarrad Branthwaite because of the impact that he had in the Premier League last season. Obviously durable, a left-sided centre-half, naturally left-sided centre-half, and homegrown talent as well. So they've looked at the figures that Manchester United paid for Harry Maguire, for instance, at £80 million. The deal for Wesley Fofana to go to Chelsea, it's £75 million. Guardiola going to Manchester City, £77 million as well. So Everton value Jarrad Branthwaite more in that kind of bracket. And at the moment, while we talk about the financial constraints, with the sales of the likes of Ben Godfrey, Amadou Onana as well, they're not in a position where they have to sell someone like Jarrad Branthwaite. So Everton can sit tight at the minute, and it would take something outlandish to even tempt them to sell just now. So when I spoke to Sean Dyche after that Coventry game and asked him, does he expect Jarrad Branthwaite to be with them for this entire season, he says that's effectively what they've told Jarrad Branthwaite as well. It seems that he's happy with that situation. They're obviously waiting for him to get back to full fitness at the moment as well. But as it stands, with Everton under no pressure to sell him, Jarrad Branthwaite will be an Everton player this season.
Just finally, Vinny, I'm going to ask you something I know everyone else has probably asked you as well. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's been the subject of interest this window, hasn't he? Do you expect him to stay?
I do, and the reason behind that is a difficult situation for Everton, obviously, with the fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has gone into the final year of his contract, and at the moment there's no sign of him signing a new deal. There has been that interest from Newcastle, but at the moment, I suppose, there's no real offers on the table. So you would expect Everton that they don't want to lessen their options up front, and in terms of staying in the Premier League, obviously Dominic Calvert-Lewin provides their biggest threat up front, their biggest focal point for their attack as well. So it wouldn't make footballing sense to let Dominic Calvert-Lewin go in this summer, albeit there is a business decision to be weighed up with him being in that final year of his contract if there was an offer on the table. At the same time, it could be more financially lucrative for Everton to stay in the Premier League, and obviously then a big part of Everton staying well clear of that drop zone would be having someone like Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the squad. So for the time being, at least, I would expect Dominic Calvert-Lewin to still be an Everton player this season as well.
All right, great stuff, Vinny. Thanks ever so much. We'll chat to you soon. OK, right, Sam, 6'6", not you. Jake O'Brien, apparently.
I wish I was 6'6".
You must be about 6'6".
6'2",
6'2", yeah.
6'3", you know, in Air Forces.
But look, when we spoke to Everton manager Sean Dyche about, you know, the fact that is O'Brien coming in to replace Branthwaite, he sort of laughed it off. But do you expect Branthwaite to still be an Everton player?
It's a tough one because where they've already lost players and are all right with their financial situation now, I don't think they are in need of selling them. Obviously, he's still one of the best centre-backs in the league, only 22 years old, played 41 times last season, was improving game on game last season. So I think it would be better for them to keep him and have O'Brien learn under him even, because the Premier League is a tough league, and it would be good for a young player to be teaching another young player. But yeah, I don't know. That's my real answer.
Oh, we don't have I don't knows on here. We want yeses or no's. Oh, we'll take it for this one. Now, still to come on Good Morning Transfers, we've got loads coming up. We're going to be live to Portugal, find out everything you need to know about a Nottingham Forest new signing Jota Silva. Plus, West Ham certainly making moves in this window. Hi there, welcome back. We're going to start with some breaking news. And Ipswich Town have signed left-back Conor Townsend from West Brom. Now, the fee is understood to be £500,000. He'll join up with the Ipswich squad on their pre-season training camp in Germany. And this is what he has said about the move. I am delighted to be here. To play in the Premier League again is a big challenge for me. And this kind of opportunity doesn't come around very often. So I jumped at the chance. That's Conor Townsend from West Brom to Ipswich Town. Right, we've got loads more to get through. Time to get to Portugal, because we are joined live on the show with Portuguese football expert Felipe Diaz. Hi, Felipe. It's great to have you on the show. Yeah. Thanks for joining
Good morning,
us.
Everyone.
Good morning. Now, we want to start with the big news, João Neves. Tell us a bit more about, this move that looks like he's going to PSG.
Yeah, incidentally, I think he's en route as we speak right now to Paris. That's the latest we've gathered so far. The deal is done. Both parties, Benfica and PSG, have been negotiating for quite a while. And this 70 million euros, I'm thinking in terms of euros, of course, which is the biggest move so far regarding Portugal, regarding a Portuguese player, of course. But I think it will be worth it. In my opinion, João Neves is a top player, and we all expect big things from him.
Hola, Felipe. As you mentioned that, it's a very big fee, very big fee.
Yeah,
just tell us, how good is he?
In my opinion, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, I think this is going to be a huge player. I think he has loads and loads of potential. I mean, you can think in terms of João Moutinho from Wolves. I think you remember him. But this is a much more updated version of him. I mean, in central midfield, this kid he can do it all. I mean, his working rate is very impressive, very fast, very skillful, aggressive, intense. And plus he's got leadership qualities. I mean, he's still young and he's going to PSG, which is a whole different setting and it's a whole different world. But I think this kid has everything, and he still hasn't broken in the national team. But it's a question of time before he is, first choice in Portugal's national team. I think this kid is. You can't go wrong with a player like this. He's very good.
Felipe, this is another Portuguese player going for a lot of money. It does show you the quality of players in that league.
Yeah, I think we're getting used to that. I'm not bragging here because I'm Portuguese, but it's been quite a while. I mean, Portugal has sold quality players for quite some time now. And plus, we all know how difficult it is to sell goalkeepers. And recently, Portugal has sold Rui Patricio. They might just sell Diogo Costa, the goalkeeper from Porto, who did splendidly in the European Championship. He did a fine tournament. I think he's a top quality goalkeeper. So yeah, Portugal does produce and does do good deals with players. There's no doubt about that.
Felipe, another Portuguese player to talk about is Jota Silva. He's on his way to Nottingham Forest from Vitória Guimarães. He's been dubbed the Portuguese Jack Grealish. And I'm pretty sure that's a compliment, but I think it's because of his shin pads and socks as well as that. But what can Forest fans expect?
Yeah, I think we might be pushing it a little bit too far in terms of playing it. Yeah, the comparison with Grealish, of course, is because of the looks of the players. He's a winger. I think he's a quality player. I wouldn't say a top player, but a very good player indeed. I was curious to see if he could play for a top Portuguese team, but going to Forest, I think, lucrative. I mean, from a financial standpoint, no doubt it will be good for him. But working with Nuno Espírito Santo, of course, a Portuguese manager, will be good for him. At least at first, it will be, in terms of adaptation and all that. So maybe a team like Forest will be good for him to start. I think he's a good player, but I'm not sure. I mean, he's not even national team material so far here in Portugal. He's been summoned a couple of times, but he's not part of the elite club, so to speak. But he's a good player, and I expect him to do well.
Just finally, Felipe, Bruno Fernandes. There's always speculation linking him with PSG, isn't there? And yet again.
Yeah, and for quite some time now. I mean, PSG was first interested in Bruno Fernandes prior to him signing for United. So now the latest information we've got is that PSG is trying to sign him once again. He had a few offers from Saudi Arabia, but he wants to stay in Europe. He wants to play, European football and stay in one of the top leagues. I don't know if this might be the end for him at United. I'm sure Bruno Fernandes, by this stage in his career, was expecting to have lifted, more trophies for United. But United isn't a powerhouse. It's always United. It's always a force to be reckoned with, but it's not the powerhouse that it once was. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bruno Fernandes would leave. But yeah, PSG is still on the lookout for him. That's the latest we've gathered so far.
Oh, really good to have you on the show, Felipe. Come back soon, won't you?
I will. Thank you. My pleasure.
Feels like Forest have had a bit of a different approach this window. Sam, are you surprised with their business so far?
I'm not surprised. I think it's probably a breath of fresh air for Forest fans as well. You've seen the last few windows. I think they signed over 40 players. This window, around 5, so I feel they've still got time to sign a few more. But I think in terms of their age profile and the type of players they're going for, they're not going for the big names or the players that they think will push them on. They're going for the players that are specific to what the manager wants and what fits the team. So I think it's looking good, and you know more than me that they're really, the camp is seeming a lot happier with how the squad is looking.
Don't put yourself down, Sam. You know loads. OK, it's the first pre-season at Nottingham Forest for head coach Nuno Espirito Santo. He says the club are evolving how they operate in the transfer market after signing over 40 players in the previous 2 windows.
You can see for the past 2 seasons the ins and outs inside of the club. I think it doesn't help us. I think it's important that we stick with the core of the squad that can and know that's going to be here, that can bring all the bad and the good experience from the past, so we can look at the future. But sticking with this core of players it's very important. It's ins and outs, and until the end of September, we must be ready for anything. So the club is working well on that aspect.
Right, let's get to West Ham now. What a busy few days they have had. They want to sign a winger, striker and a right-back. We'll start with the fresh developments involving Crescencio Somerville. So a deal has been agreed with Leeds to sign him. He's going to have a medical ahead of completing that move. What do you think he's going to bring, Sam?
Well, I'll go over to the board and I will show you a few of his stats from last season. Because honestly, he has been a quality player for Leeds. I think it's interesting because the season before, he was obviously in the Premier League and he wasn't really finding his feet. But in the Championship, he burst into life. As you can see from here, his games, 43 games, 19 goals, 9 assists. He was an electric wide man. Everyone in the Championship can attest to that, hence why he won Championship Player of the season. And there's no surprise that he's been linked with moves to, Liverpool. There's been interest from PSG as well. And I think now West Ham are showing real intent of what they want going into the Premier League. And you can see from Somerville's experience in the Premier League, he played 28 games, minutes played 1,415, only scored 4 goals. But when you look at the amount of minutes he played and his game time, it was quite limited, but he did have a flurry of 4 games where he scored back-to-back. He had a game where he was on the bench, and I think that ruined his momentum. But at the same time, he's a quality player. He's very, very young, still 22 years old, and I think he's going to add a lot of quality to that West Ham side. How do you think this move is going to go down?
I think it's a really impressive signing by West Ham, and I think the speed that the move has happened is, I think, just a testament of maybe a new strategy and a new way of working at West Ham, because I think last season there seemed to be, between the technical director Tim Stein and David Moyes, it didn't seem necessarily they were on the same page maybe in previous windows. But I think, it was quite telling. I was at Julian Lopetegui's first news conference a month ago.
Oh,
they were, but I was also at his house in December. But anyway, no, I'm joking. But in terms of, they were sat next to each other, and I think that was a real significant point to show that these two are on the same page. They are working together, identifying targets. And like I said, the swiftness they've been able to seemingly wrap up this deal for Somerville, who, as we just saw the stats by Sam, he is very up and coming, lots of potential. Maybe not someone who needs to go straight into the starting lineup in terms of, Jarrad, Bowen, Mohamed Kudus can start. So you can hopefully slowly get him up to pace and up to what Lopetegui wants from him. But there's no doubt he'll just be another threat that West Ham have. And also someone that can just rotate alongside those other 2 wingers.
Yeah, why do they need a winger? That's what I was going to ask.
I think they needed that squad depth. When you look at West Ham, you think of Kudus, you think of Bowen, and they were quality players. We saw what they've done in the Premier League. But at the same time, when those players are out of form or they do have injuries, they didn't necessarily have the players to come in to, fill that gap. They did have Maxwell Cornet, who obviously moved from Burnley, but he had limited game time. But I think this window, you're seeing that they're going for those areas that they need the squad depth. They've signed Luis Gil from Palmeiras. He's only 18 years old, so I don't know if he's going to go straight into the starting lineup. But with Somerville, he's a player that can play on the left, he can play on the right, scores goals, gets assists, still very young. And I think he's going to be a great signing for West Ham. I've already seen the way the West Ham fans are reacting online, and they are very happy.
Well, they're also trying to sign Borussia Dortmund's Niklas Füllkrug. That agreement is close. And Dan, they've wanted a striker for some time, haven't they?
They have. And I think, we've been talking all week about, will Mikel Antonio still be West Ham's main striker this season? But I think Füllkrug, we saw him, how important he was for Germany in the Euros. He was, of course, very impressive for Borussia Dortmund last season as well. And I think what Füllkrug represents for them is, he's not just a big striker. He has a very good touch, can finish with both feet, but also great header of the ball as well. So I think what Julian Lopetegui likes to do is have as much width as possible and really have that number 9. He's never really had a number 9 who scores 20, 30 goals a season. But what that number 9 represents is much more someone who can link all the other attacking players around them. And I think, as we saw in the Euros, Füllkrug can do that very well.
Do you think they need more attacking options?
I think with these two incoming, I'm not sure they will be pushing for other players. I think that that's a good core of players and attacking options that they can go and chase European football. Because now that they've had that taster, I'm sure that they want that. And with these players, some of them already having European experience, some of them are pushing for that European experience. I think it's a good blend of youth and experience.
Well, Aaron Wan-Bissaka is the other target. They are close to agreeing a deal with Manchester United. Many aspects of the deal have been agreed in principle, but there is still work to do on a final fee and also the structure. So why Aaron Wan-Bissaka?
I think it's probably part of Lopetegui's kind of rebuild of this defence, because we saw last season that West Ham leaked a lot of goals from different aspects of the game, set pieces, corners, for example, free kicks, from really all areas of the game. And Aaron Wan-Bissaka, as we can see there, he spent 5-6 years at Manchester United now, and he's still a very, very good one-on-one defender. So you think him behind Jarrad Bowen, where maybe Bowen can have a bit more freedom to do what he wants. You leave Wan-Bissaka back. Kufal is now 31 years old. We've also seen them sign Maximilian Kilman already from Wolves, the former Wolves captain. So I think Lopetegui's identifying that defence as an area of improvement, and he's slowly rebuilding that defence to hopefully be a bit more solid this season.
Right, well, coming up, our focus is going to turn to Arsenal. Could they be set to sign Euro 2024 winner Mikel Merino? Stay with us here on Good Morning Transfers. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look at some of the stories making the back pages and the gossip columns. We love a bit of gossip. Right, we're going to start with The Sun. They are reporting Ben Chilwell has become a shock target for Manchester United. His Chelsea future looking in doubt, according to that one. Elsewhere, in the Daily Mail, they're suggesting that Liverpool could be forced to consider bringing in a new defender should Joe Gomez decide to leave this summer. And finally, newly promoted Leicester want to sign Jordan Ayew, with Crystal Palace considering selling the forward. That story in the Evening Standard. And don't forget, you can read more transfer gossip in Paper Talk. Just scan this QR code on the screen. That will take you straight to the Transfer Centre blog. Okay, to Arsenal then remain interested in Real Sociedad midfielder Mikel Merino. Now, they're continuing to explore the conditions of a potential deal. No formal approach has been made just yet. There are internal discussions ongoing over the next steps with Merino entering the final year of his contract. He is one of a number of players under consideration there. He's 28. He had a spell at Newcastle as well earlier in his career. Do you think, Dan, he would be a smart signing for Arsenal?
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? I think he's a very different player to the player we saw in Newcastle when he was much younger. You know, he's 28 years old now. You know, he's in the Spain national side. We saw him be a very important member of that side in the Euros as well. I think the interesting thing with Arsenal, Mikel Arteta, and really when you look at all the top sides now in terms of the business they do, the incomings quite often are players who can play in different positions. And I think Moreno is one of those players. You know, he can play as a defensive six if you want him to, similar maybe to Jorginho. I think we saw, of course, Declan Rice play further forward towards the end of last season. So maybe that's why, you know, they want a bit more versatility in that midfield, whether that's next to Partey to let Rice go forward or Jorginho. But also, as we saw in the Euros, Moreno can pop up with some really important goals, and he has a touch for it as well. So I think in terms of what, you know, maybe Arsenal needed last season was probably a few more players to rotate around that first team, essentially. And maybe they didn't have enough depth last season. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think Arteta's... It's interesting because when you saw his first season when they were pushing for the league, you know, Xhaka was so prominent. And then they lost Xhaka and obviously got Declan Rice, and he almost was a great player, but he almost didn't fill the void that Xhaka left. And I think they want to have a player that complements that, because you can imagine if Declan Rice and Xhaka were playing together, that midfield would have been incredible, with Odegaard as well pushing forward. And I think that this is a role that Arteta is really keen on finding. He's tried a few players there, Havertz, Smith Rowe, Vieira. None of them have really found, you know, comfortability in that position, because it's such an important role for Arsenal. So I think it makes sense that they're looking for a player like this with that much experience as well.
Just looking at it from the other side, from the player, he's also been linked with Barcelona and Atletico Madrid. Where do you think is the best fit for him?
Oh, great options, though. As a player, if you're looking at these options, you'll be happy with that. I think when you look at Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, obviously he's playing in Spain now and he's a Spanish international, so it would make sense in terms of being comfortable with the league as well. But when you look at Barcelona, it might be difficult for him to fit into that mould, if that makes sense. Obviously, he's got 8 goals, 5 assists in his game. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how it would work.
I just wonder as well, maybe just on a personal level, is there some part of him that wants to return to the Premier League? Because that spell at Newcastle, as I mentioned, he was a bit younger. He only played 17 games in his full season at Newcastle. So maybe there's part of him who does want to come back to the Premier League, and maybe he has a bit of a point to prove. Now he's a bit older, a bit more experienced. And, you know, I think undoubtedly he'd be involved in a title race if he does join Arsenal.
What do you think of Arsenal's business so far?
I think it's smart. I think it's very clear that the owners are backing Arteta. They know that they were this close again to winning the league. So it seems like they just want to add the depth to their squad, because their squad is incredible. They've got, you know, amazing players in every single position. But I think when it comes to the back end of the season, they might struggle a little bit with, you know, the squad depth and the quality of the squad depth to come in and, you know, have a real significant, you know, input into the team. Calafiori looks like a great signing, but I think Merino now, he's 28 years old. Like we've seen, he scores, he assists as well. He's aggressive. He's an aggressive midfielder, plays in multiple positions. I think they just want to add the quality and the experience so they can really push on, because we said it on one of the last shows. This is the year where you're almost saying they have to win something. it will be okay if they still progress, but how far can you go from, being second twice and, being in the Champions League again? The fans will get restless, the players will get restless as well, and you don't really want to know what's on the other side of that.
Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, eh?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wouldn't know.
One name that we have... You like that one? One name that we haven't heard mentioned in this window... Ivan Toney, can you believe it? Is he going to be set to stay at Brentford? I mean, look, this new signing, Igor Thiago, has been ruled out for the majority of the rest of the year. This is because of a meniscus injury on his debut. Do you think that would impact a potential move for Toney?
It's a tough one because they've spoke so openly and honestly about his situation, and I don't know if that's worked in his favour or not, because now teams could probably go to them and say, we know he wants to leave. This is the price that we're willing to pay. If not, then he can just stay. But at the same time, he's made it very clear that he wants, to play in the Champions League and playing, in the top teams. And he's done really well for Brentford. Maybe the back end of the season, his form wasn't that great, but at the same time, he showed the quality at the Euros for England, the impact that he had at the top level of football. So I'm interested to see what actually happens with Ivan Toney, because a lot of teams are looking for an out-and-out striker with personality, someone that can hold up play, that can score goals as well. He's got a lot of confidence. So I'm surprised that teams aren't really pushing to get him in.
Yeah, and considering all the speculation in January, are you surprised there's been no move?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, it feels like everyone was crying out for, in January, a striker, because whatever team got him would be pushing for the title. But he was a kind of a title changer, wasn't he? I think the question maybe, especially when you look at the Premier League, is if the price is north of £50 million, £70 million, you look at the teams now, Arsenal was potentially the obvious choice, but I think they're very happy with how Kai Havertz performed at the second half of last season. Whether that is the long-term solution, we don't know. But you look at the other sides, are Tottenham or the likes of Manchester City crying out for a striker of that price bracket? If that compromises the rest of your transfer window in terms of spend, we know teams don't have loads of money to spend. I think that might be potentially the sticking point. For Brentford, though, can they afford to lose him now with their main replacement for him potentially being injured till the new year? Maybe not, and maybe they need to keep him and risk losing him on a free because he's that valuable.
Interesting. We're going to leave it there. But don't worry, we've got plenty more coming tomorrow. Good Morning Transfers is going to be back at the same time of 9 o'clock. Sam Abasaki's going to be here as well. Can you believe it? He's back for more. We've got plenty more to come today as well from the team. Transfer Talk here at midday. The guys will be back for that as well. And then Sport for Choice, aren't you? You've got a full roundup of all of the day's news. Just catch the Transfer Show tonight. 2 instalments for you, 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock this evening. You two have had a great time, don't lie. Coming up on Sky Sports News, we've got loads more transfer news next with Hayley.